All right, as I begin here tonight, I feel like I need to take you back to last year when Mrs. Gallegos first called me and asked me if I would speak at this prestigious event tonight. I was, of course, honored to even be considered and quickly accepted. Over the next several months, Mrs. Gallegos was gracious enough to remind me a couple of times as tonight's date came closer. And it wasn't until about a month ago that I began to get nervous. And it had nothing to do with the anxiety of speaking in front of people or what I would say. It was an email from Mrs. Gallegos asking me for a picture of myself. You see, I don't do pictures. I don't like taking pictures. If there's ever a need to take a picture, I'm the one standing in the back. I think Ms. Gallegos had to email me a couple of times before I could get myself to decide on a picture and finally email it to her. I'm embarrassed to admit that this infamous picture that is now part of your program is more than 20 years old. In 2002, I was awarded the Golden Apple Award and part of the prize package was a professional photo shoot. This picture comes from that dreaded modeling experience. And unfortunately, it's one of very few pictures I have of myself. You can Google me, search for me on social media, and the handful of pictures you might find are either old or for the purposes of a profile. I preface my words tonight with this tidbit of information because over the last couple of weeks, as I was thinking about what I would say to you tonight, I was continuously reminded of the lack of pictures of myself. And it prompted me to center my message tonight around the need to preserve your memories, to safeguard your accomplishments, and to highlight your celebrations. So tonight I say to you, loud and clear, over and over, stop and take that picture. When you think about one of the limited luxuries of coming from a migrant family, you have to recognize the dozens and dozens of photo opportunities that arise when traveling to new states, exploring new towns, and enjoying the new sights. Those of us who have traveled numerous states year after year can hopefully appreciate these experiences as inspirational, and even encouraging as we witness all of the greatness that our country has to offer. During my dissertation work, I was lucky enough to have had the opportunity to interview numerous former migrant students just like yourselves. This particular group of former migrant students were all successful college graduates when I interviewed them, each one of them working in their respective career choice. The goal of my research was to gain insight into what they felt was necessary for migrant students to succeed and what hindered those who didn't. To no surprise, the migrant students I spoke to unanimously indicated that it was the meaningful, intrinsic, and extrinsic rewards that kept them moving forward. That certificate for perfect attendance, that math or reading award, a special treat for passing the test, being included in the earning of a class popcorn party, and yes, even having their picture posted on the classroom bulletin board. Collectively, these students noted the power of genuine praise as they struggled to stay positive while trying to balance learning a new language and catching up academically. Each struggle became even more real when it involved transferring to a new classroom, in a new school, in a new state, and then having to adapt quickly. As you walk into this next chapter of your life, adapting will be key. Be sure to set attainable goals, work hard to achieve them, and then celebrate when you do. On this next phase of your endeavors, your professors or employers probably won't give you a certificate or offer up a celebration. So it will be up to you to be your own cheerleader. Pull out that cell phone and take a picture of that almost perfect math test or that oh so awesome paper that you wrote and plaster that on your social media. Send those to your friends, send them to your family, and send them to your parents. And parents who are out there, please be sure to do the same. Brag about their accomplishments, share their triumphs, and share those pictures. Those photos will no doubt tilt your memories toward the positive times, outshining the tough times, and serve as a digital certificate of achievement that will encourage additional greatness. There's a story of a photographer that went to a socialite party in New York City several decades ago. And as the photographer entered the front door, the host welcomed him in and said to him, "I love your pictures, they're wonderful. You must have a fantastic camera." The photographer didn't say anything in return. Instead, he waited until dinner was over. As it was time to leave, the photographer thanked the host for dinner and said, "Dinner was wonderful. You must have a wonderful stove." It was at that moment that the host learned the error of her words. She immediately understood that it is skills and passion and talent that make someone amazing, and not the equipment itself. An accomplished photographer will tell you that having the best camera will not make you the best photographer. The best equipment you will ever own is your artistic eye and your knowledge about lighting, composition, and perspective. Consider this analogy when you start preparing for day one of college, trade school, or the workforce. It is your past and your experiences that will make you stronger and a more competent individual. In recalling my days as a migrant student, one thing I clearly remember is that my dad always made sure that we made that trek up north with him every summer to work in the fields. There were no ifs, ands, or buts. He never pulled us out of school early, but as soon as the last day of school ended, he would return for us, and we would head to Virginia, then the Carolinas, and finally Michigan, working the crops along that notorious East Coast migrant route filled with rows and rows of fruits and vegetables that required our harvesting. Yes, the farmlands were often very picturesque. Sometimes the sunrises and the sunsets were amazing, but never enough for me to pull out a camera and capture the moment. As the sun rose, it was time to get to work. Working until sunset was important because you never knew if tomorrow would bring rain, which would be an obvious setback if you understand how farm work works. If you toiled in the duties of the migrant farm worker, you know that it's hot, painstaking labor. I hated every moment of it. And it was there in that blistering heat of a cucumber field in Michigan that I vowed to want more for myself. As noble as a farm worker job was, I was not ashamed to admit that I wanted a life of light physical labor, and most importantly, I wanted a life filled with air conditioning. I wouldn't be a true educator if I didn't take some time tonight to share a few facts in an attempt to enlighten you and possibly grow a few extra dendrites. As I make connections to taking pictures, it is interesting to note that a teacher's best practice lies in the strategy of using pictures. Studies tell us that visuals such as photographs, especially with English language learners, support making connections, as well as the building of vocabulary and critical thinking skills. Scientists believe that the brain is able to process images approximately 60,000 times more quickly than it processes a similar amount of written information. Some experts suggest that images are more likely to be remembered than words because our brains dually encode images, but encode words only once. This is to say that when you see an image or a picture, it is stored in your memory in the form of a picture, but it is also stored in the form of a word. That is the reason why you might remember an entire movie, but have trouble recalling the 52 words in the preamble of the Constitution. Understand that pictures are powerful. They are the foundation of what Instagram and TikTok were built on and rely on. As visually based entities, each one drives surges of dopamine to the brain to keep their users coming back over and over again. One of the best ways to make yourself happy in the present is to recall happy times from the past. Photos are easily a great memory prompt, and because we tend to take photos of happy occasions and milestones, they weigh our memories to the good. As I stand before you tonight, I understand well the humble work of the migrant farm worker. I have lived it and breathed it, and it will forever be a part of my DNA. I wholeheartedly respect it, I value and revere it, and I have pledged to do what I can to support those who have come after me. I may not have the best camera, but I have a unique perspective that only one can gain under the strongest sunlight. I know that when life gets blurry, all I have to do is adjust my focus, change my angle, and repeat as needed. Senior year is filled with an array of photo opportunities, from grad bash and prom to your upcoming scholarship ceremony and the culmination of graduation. Each is an opportunity to capture the memories, take the pictures, share the pictures, and most importantly, allow the pictures to inspire you, allow them to propel you to yearn for new adventures, new accomplishments, and new horizons. On days that you might be feeling overwhelmed or just in a slump, pull out those photos and go back to the moments that quickly remind you of all of the reasons that you should be feeling grateful. Pick yourself back up and get back on the road to success that every single one of you deserve. The only thing I know for sure about migrant farm workers is that we all know about resilience. We've endured so much that working hard is something we've learned to do well. From the monarch butterfly to the humpback whale, migration is hardly ever voluntary. Just like the migrant family, monarch butterflies and humpback whales, they need to move seasonally in order to find better living conditions and food. And no doubt requires a level of realization and adaptability. For the migrant family, the reasons are no different. When farm worker families have to migrate. However, for reasons far beyond their control, the effects are multifaceted with an array of factors that must be considered. Being displaced as a result of crop rotations that cut production and halt the workforce puts families in positions where relocation is inevitable. The journey of the migrant student is vast with many miles in between. Moving across state lines, sometimes several times a year, can be taxing and unsettling. The differences in community cultures and misaligned education standards are enough to conjure up fear and unease. Many of you have experienced arriving at a new school mid-year, and there were huge learning gaps because your teachers were teaching something you've never seen and were unable to connect to. Other times you ended up with a teacher who wasn't familiar with and didn't understand what you were going through as a marginalized student, and frankly, they didn't care. All of these obstacles, and yet here you sit, just 22 days away from high school graduation. Get those cameras ready. As I close, I want to remember my mother, who passed away 9 months ago today from dementia. If you're familiar with this disease, it's the one that takes away your ability to make decisions, and eventually it steals your memory. Someone once said that a photograph is like a return ticket to a memory otherwise gone. Photographs definitely have the ability to capture a moment in time and preserve it forever. They can somehow transport us back to specific times and places and help us to remember the way things looked, the way they smelled, the way they felt. Photographs also have the power to evoke strong emotions. A single image can make us laugh, cry, or feel inspired. My mom loved to take pictures, and it was from those pictures that my sisters and I are reminded of where we came from. Those pictures allow us to reminisce about the simpler times where we didn't need Wi-Fi or cell phones, just each other. It is within those pictures that we became filled with aspirations to do more and to be more. My hope tonight is that you work on enhancing your own digital photo album. You fill it with fond, positive, and powerful memories. I would be negligent if I didn't remind you that offensive and inappropriate pictures can ruin a future quickly. So be mindful of what you post and what you share. Always be reminded that it is during your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Destiny is never a matter of chance, but always a matter of choice. Stand up, be bold, be strong. Most importantly, be true to yourself, to the values that your parents have instilled in you. And when you take those pictures, always aim for ones that will capture your best side. Silly or candid, posed or artistic, use your pictures to proudly tell your story. Collect beautiful moments and share them for the purpose of influencing yourself and those who follow in your footsteps. And always remember that if that image isn't up to the high standards that you set for yourself, you can always schedule another photo session and take another shot. Good luck and thank you.